To get more clients in the door for your coaching business? And what if you had a process that gave you confidence every single week that you could book at least one new client? That's what I'm going to cover today in today's video, a 5-step process that's going to allow you to kind of work it through every single week. And at the end of it, you're going to have at least one new client with consistency, with full confidence. And this is something that I really developed in my own business. So when I first started out, Monday morning always used to be the worst because I'd look ahead to the week. I'd look at all the hard work that I have to put in. And it seemed like every week, all the effort and all that consistency that I was putting in wasn't resulting in new clients being booked. I wasn't really getting a return from all that time that I was putting in. And it took me a long period of time to kind of figure out the strategies and techniques that I'm really going to talk about today. But I'm happy to report that I'm at a stage right now in my business where I can start every week with full confidence in knowing that I'm going to book at least one new client by following this kind of consistent process I'm going to talk through today. And really, this week was no different, where I had a client opening that's coming through next week. I had a cold in my calendar that I'm looking to fill. I kind of followed that same process that I do every single week. And like clockwork, I was able to book a new client in the last few days. So I'm all set for next week, and I'm having confidence about, in the weeks going forward, that ability to kind of book new clients as I go through. So it's a 5-step process I'm going to walk you through. You can run it through for your own coaching business and see those results in the same way. So the first thing is kind of starting out by being more specific about who your audience is. So most coaches that I talk to start out by just marketing to the masses. It's kind of like going to a crowded market and saying, "I'm a coach, please hire me," and kind of either just getting no response from the crowd because they didn't hear you, or just getting kind of a weird look from people because they're like, who is this crazy person? So you have to be able to kind of have those one-on-one conversations, be more specific, and kind of tailor your message to a specific audience that you most want to work with. And really that comes through kind of some of that will just come through in the confidence of being able to kind of book clients on a more consistent basis. You'll get that confidence to know that, okay, it can be a little bit more targeted. I'm not missing out on these opportunities by targeting the broader market. And really kind of honing in on that message. And this is really important, especially as you go through, because you want to have a message that kind of resonates with people. So certain audiences have a language that they're speaking that's a little bit different. So they use different words or phrases. They care about different things. So they have different pain points. They have different outcomes that they're looking for. If you're not speaking to those things, it's not really going to resonate. And you have to be really specific in who you're trying to go after. So that's kind of the first and one of the most important things to think about. The second thing is being proactive and really going out there and kind of sharing your message with people. What I see with coaches all the time is they'll put up their website or they'll put up a Facebook business page, and they'll kind of sit back and relax and just hope some leads and clients might come through. And they're kind of surprised when not people when people aren't booking their free calls or things like that. And the reason for that is nobody really knows who you are, especially when you're kind of first starting out. But even as your business goes along, if you're not putting in those processes every single week and being proactive and starting those conversations with people, can be everything from using online ads to email to actually just going out there and making direct contact with people. And that's really important as we go along to kind of the next steps as well. In having those conversations, it's twofold that you're really, your purpose of doing that. Number one is really just getting to know your audience really well. So especially as you're starting out your coaching business, but even as you go along, you want to be having these conversations and asking them questions and being curious about, and just really sitting there and listening. Like, what are these people really dealing with? What are those outcomes that they're looking for? What are they, what are some of the pain points that they're talking about, and what's going on in their everyday life? Like, what do they care about? By kind of having those conversations, you're going to be able to kind of get into the mind of your prospects and that specific audience that you're going after, and it's going to improve your marketing. It's going to improve your message, and therefore you're going to resonate with your audience. You're going to be speaking their language. you're going to have the same words and phrases that they really use, and that's going to lead to more and more inbound traffic. But it does take, again, some proactivity. In the early going, you're going to be doing a lot of proactive reaching out. You might not get as much inbound leads, but over time, if you're consistent and persistent with it, that's going to lead to the point where you can kind of sit back a little bit more and you're getting more leads than you can handle. And the second thing is, as part of those conversations, is really demonstrating your expertise along the way. So you know in your own head that you're a really good coach, that you have the skills that can kind of help transform people's lives, but your audience really doesn't know that. And for your audience, they might have hired a different coach before and not seen those results. They might be coming in with a high degree of skepticism, who does this guy think he is, or who does this girl think she is that can really help me? Like, you have to really prove it to them. They have to kind of show them along the way in those conversations how much expertise you have, and some of that might be just giving away some free advice along the way, and we'll get to that in a second. But being able to kind of demonstrate that you know what you're talking about, that you can kind of very much help them. And again, being very specific in talking about those messages as well. So some of this is actually getting some testimonials, especially along the way where you're having some great client results, getting some testimonials from people, building out those case studies, but also just having those conversations along the way to share some of your knowledge, even before they hire you. Giving out some things that will give them momentum along the way is really important into doing that. And that kind of leads into kind of the next step that I kind of think about is really delivering value up front and kind of delivering value without any expectation of return. So going out there, having these conversations, again, demonstrating your expertise by giving them a little bit of value, giving them something that will kind of move them along to that outcome that they're looking for. And if you can get them that momentum going, and again, kind of demonstrating their expertise, your expertise with them, that's going to allow them to kind of be captured within your world. That trust and connection is really going to be developed, and that's going to get you closer to being hired by. They're going to be more confident in kind of hiring you, and this is something that not a lot of your competitors are really doing. So, especially as I look on platforms like LinkedIn. If you're kind of receiving connection requests every day or messages within LinkedIn, kind of the standard process there is that you're always getting a sales pitch or getting thrown a webinar or for a lot of people, giving value to people is sending them their latest lead magnet or their webinar. And what I'm talking about here is really actually getting to know people, having that conversation, asking them questions, getting to know them along the way, and then figuring out how can you, in a specific personalized way, get them moving in the right direction to where they want to be. It's not just throwing out your latest webinar replay or your lead magnet and sending that off to hundreds of different people and seeing what sticks. It's actually getting to know that person on a personal level and then figuring out, like, what is the specific thing that I can help them move along, in their kind of journey. And again, not expecting that if you give out some of those tips or suggestions that kind of moves them along, that they're immediately going to hire you as their coach. Kind of playing the long game and kind of going out there and having these conversations. So for me, every single week, I try to have at least 30 of those conversations where I'm delivering some type of value up front. Again, all 30 of those conversations don't result in clients, but I am confident every single week if I'm having 30 conversations that I am delivering value up front, where I'm demonstrating my expertise, getting to know those people along the way. I'm going to have at least one new client come out of that every single week. And I'm probably laying the seeds for future clients down the line. So maybe right now isn't a great time for them to hire me, but in 3 months' time, in 6 months' time, I've kind of developed that first impression. I've differentiated myself, from all my competitors as well to do those things. So that's kind of the formula on how to kind of think about that. So again, being very specific in who you're going after, being proactive with those conversations. So again, not waiting for people to reach your website, not waiting for them to read your lead magnet, and having those conversations, making sure that we're getting to know them. So getting to know your market is really important. Demonstrating your expertise along the way, nobody knows those thoughts and knowledge that you have in your head. So you have to be able to kind of bring that out a little bit more and show that up front even before they hire you. And then the last thing is leading with value. So again, having the attitude that I'm going to give some stuff away in the early going with no expectation of return, but knowing that over time you're gonna get that back 100 times fold, 10 times fold, as you kind of think about that, as you kind of build these connections over time, and you get to the point where you're really building some trust and connection. So put those into practice every single week. Again, I'm very consistent and persistent in following that process and seeing the results along the way. And for me, it's kind of up leveled my quality of my clients, but also allowed me to kind of raise my prices pretty quickly over that time period. So put it in place for yourself. Leave some comments about what you think about it, and have a great day.